Hey, this is Matthew Donaldson from the University of South Carolina Upstate in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and today I'm going to talk a bit about the Creative Crosswalk project and the role of public art in the community. Numerous cities around the world are embracing public art in the form of murals, sculpture, architecture, and various other art forms as a means of beautifying the area, creating unique visual appeal, and promoting a sense of community amongst the locals. Spartanburg is one such city. In 2015, Spartanburg was officially designated as a culture district, only the second of its kind in the state of South Carolina at the time. And a cultural district is defined as a collaboration between art and the local community. Thus, Spartanburg has pushed heavily for an increase in the public art scene and enhancing public art in the downtown area. As a professional designer and design educator, my background is heavily in web design, thus about 90% of my professional projects tend to be web design projects, with the remaining 10% geared more towards your traditional design such as logo design or print-based design. Thus, I've been trying to think of ways to get out of my comfort zone and design something out of the realm of web design or traditional design, and that's where public art came into play. I thought it would be really interesting to test myself beyond the digital realm, which is where I typically work, and actually in the physical realm, which is where this public art would be implemented. I set up a meeting with Chapman Cultural Center, which is an organization in Spartanburg that provides major funding and education for many of Spartanburg's arts and cultural organizations, and I asked if there were any public art initiatives on the table that I could potentially be a part of. And this is where the Creative Crosswalk project came into play. It was a project that had been in the works for a couple years, but had never really been pushed to making it a reality. But at the moment, it was something that they were looking to make happen in the next year. And I thought that would be really interesting, not only for myself, but also for my students to be involved in. And the idea behind the project is not only to continue to enhance the public art scene in Spartanburg, but also to enhance public safety in the area. When you're dealing with an area such as downtown Spartanburg where there's heavy pedestrian traffic, you run the risk of pedestrian-related incidents. And as far back as 2008, 4,400 pedestrian traffic fatalities were recorded. And in a span of 10 years, going up to 2017, that number increased to nearly 6,000 deaths. That's about a 35% increase, which is quite significant. Spartanburg, in an attempt to combat those statistics or increase that pedestrian safety in the area, decided that the Crosswalk project would double up both as public art and a means of promoting safety. The Creative Crosswalk project involved a series of 8 crosswalks located on Main Street in downtown Spartanburg, and the idea was to have local artists and designers paint those crosswalks. My students and I were assigned 4 of those crosswalks in the heart of the downtown area. I was fortunate enough to receive a $6,000 research initiative for summer engagement grant through the University of South Carolina, which allowed me to fund my role and my students' roles in this project. The grant funding went to paying both my students and I a small stipend for our time and work on the project, as well as buy supplies to actually paint the murals. The goal of this project wasn't just to create a series of murals in the downtown area, but it was also to involve the local community. The challenge in that lies with determining how to involve the community in the creative thought process, but not the actual physical implementation of the murals. And one method for accomplishing that was to poll the community on topics such as the pros and cons of being a pedestrian or driver in Spartanburg, the qualities of Spartanburg that instill a sense of community, imagery that symbolizes Spartanburg, thoughts on using art to enhance crosswalks, preferred color palettes, design styles, etc. And the series of questions was distributed to the community, and a total of 85 responses were received for the poll. And the poll data was analyzed and served as an aid in determining the need for more public art in Spartanburg and establishing the overall design concepts for the crosswalk murals. The poll found that nearly 50% of respondents found Spartanburg to be easily navigable due to crosswalks and walking access. However, nearly 40% said that too many drivers are endangering pedestrian lives. Anywhere from 22 to 34% also mentioned that the murals build a stronger connection to the city and add uniqueness to the city, and say that murals would aid in getting the attention of both pedestrians and drivers. At the start of the project, I visited the murals on Main Street and I took measurements of the actual crosswalks. And oddly enough, you wouldn't think these crosswalks are that large when you walk over them, but when you actually pay attention to the size of the crosswalks, they're actually quite large. They ranged anywhere up to 45 feet in length, and all were about 9 to 11 feet in height. And they alternated between white bars of paint and then the street itself as negative space, and each of these bars represented about 2 feet in width. In order to create our digital designs, I created a template in Illustrator that was essentially to scale. It was a scale model of the crosswalks, and it allowed us to go in and create many different design concepts before ever setting foot on the crosswalks with actual paint. Now, our idea behind this was if we're painting 4 crosswalks, then we need to be unified and have an overall theme that ties these crosswalks in together and looks like we painted these as a group or as a series. And we decided to go with a series of 4 colors and also black as a background or base. And the idea behind the black was that it would really stand out from the grayish color of the asphalt, and it would contrast very well with the vibrant colors that we chose for the actual mural paintings. We went into numerous concepts in Illustrator figuring out different pattern-based design. The real challenge here was at the last minute, we were told that we could not paint over any of the vertical white bars. Since these crosswalks were designated as high traffic areas, the vertical white bars had to stay, but the horizontal white bars could be painted over. And that's where we decided to go in and play off of the horizontal white bars and eliminate some of the white in those areas to create some variation in the vertical white bars that you see. So we worked on pattern-based design, as you're really limited working in those fairly smaller spaces since you can't paint over the vertical bars. The pattern-based design ranged across many different designs, and ultimately we came up with our final concepts. Now what you're seeing over here on the left are a series of different concepts that we were working through, and then at the bottom, for example, is the final concept that I decided to work with for my one mural. And the students had their other designs that went along with mine. And we decided on these, and unfortunately we weren't able to use a projector to get our designs onto the street. So we had to go in and tape off our designs, or tape off the white bars and paint black as our base. And then we went in and physically taped out our designs or our patterns using our images as reference. Now the nice thing about the pattern-based design is you have some leeway to freehand it once you're in there and actually working on the designs. So we were able to go in and get our designs laid out and paint over everything while it was masked off. Now this street bond paint that we used had to have 4 coats of paint in order to withstand the heavy foot traffic and vehicle traffic that goes through the area. So we laid down our base coats of black, the 4 coats. We laid down our coats of color and then sprayed a couple of more layers of sealant over the top of these to really lock in the designs. We also went into this project thinking it wouldn't actually take that long to paint these crosswalks, but we started at 5:30 a.m. and didn't get finished until 3 a.m. the next day. And ultimately, it resulted in the 4 crosswalks you see in the bottom right photo. This is an aerial shot of our 4 crosswalks, and you can see the uniformity amongst these. The black background really ties them in. You got the colors that match up across the board, this somewhat abstracted style of patterns, and it creates this really playful and visually interesting environment that attracts attention. People are interested in seeing this. When they're walking downtown, they take photos with these crosswalks. They pay attention to what they're doing. Vehicles pay attention to the crosswalks as they're going, and they're really an excellent addition to the city of Spartanburg. Ultimately, the Creative Crosswalk project resulted in a series of murals that now serve as a means of drawing attention and awareness to both driver and pedestrian safety, connecting with the local community, revitalizing easily overlooked spaces, and transforming a section of the downtown Spartanburg area. The post-project poll that we conducted indicated that 72.4% of the 76 respondents feel that crosswalk murals have had a positive impact on both pedestrian and driver safety. That number represents a significant increase from the pre-project poll, in which only 34.1% of respondents felt that crosswalk murals would enhance pedestrian and driver safety. These results indicate that the crosswalk murals were successfully implemented and serve as yet another example of Spartanburg's commitment to driver and pedestrian safety, public art, and the growing downtown cultural district. Thank you.